In the previous one, we covered how to do effects. We learned about state closures, and we should always rather use when the when inside of use effect we want to manipulate the state. We're going to use the old set state as a function where we get access to the old state and then increment. Otherwise, we will have state closures. And also, we learned about returning a function from use effect, and that function will help us clean up the effect. The next, what we're going to see is how to take DOM events. And for that, I am going to make a app where we have an image, and if I press the arrow keys on my keyboard, the image will rotate. Now, taking input from the keyboard is again a sort of an effect, so we will learn more about use effect in this one. I am going to name it const image rotator, and I'm making another component in here. And let's just return a div with an image in between, right? And the image, we can find some source. I'm just gonna go online and see some image. Unsplash is a pretty good resource for finding images. And let's just get one simple image that we find nice. I think I like this one. I'm gonna go and use this image. Copy image address. And I'm gonna put that in the source. And let's also go and render this component instead of the stopwatch component now. So now we have that image on our screen with us. And I'll also go and add this class name of center, and all it does is basically it'll center the image on the whole page. We are just using a flex, giving it a height, and justifying the content. So now we have an image on the center of the page, right? Now, if we want to rotate this image, we can use CSS to rotate this image. And I'm going to put a style tag here, a style prop here. And the style prop will take something to rotate the image, and that will be a transform. And the value of that transform would be rotate. And here I can say, let's say 90. Let's look up how the transform works. CSS transform rotate. And if I just go, oh, I shouldn't be applying this. But yeah, it's simply transform rotate, and you put the number of degrees that you want to rotate. So in this app, we're gonna go here and put the degree also. And now our image is rotated by 90 degrees, right? Similarly, I can go here and say 180 degrees. This will happen when we press the down key. If I want to rotate it by right, if I press the right key, I should rotate it by 90 degrees. 180 degrees for the down. And if I press the left key, it should rotate 270. And if I press stop, it should be 360 degrees. Or basically 0 degree, that's the same. So somehow I need to keep changing this variable. So I can put this variable as an angle. Let me just make a variable here, const rotation angle. And I'm gonna set it initial to 0. And let me put this in the string here. And you already know how to do this. We are just using the ESX string interpolation and putting it there. Now, if I keep changing this variable, let's say 90, I want to press the right button. If I press the down button, it should be somewhere around 180. If I press the left button, it should be 270. And 360 for the straight up button or 0 degrees for the straight up button. So now we have some amount of idea. I can make this, whatever I was talking, I can make this into a variable here, const angle to, or I can call this direction to angle. And here my direction to angle variable, let's say if I do up, I want to say 0. If I say down, or let's say if I say,
sure I understand.
That was just CD popping up. If I say right, it should be 90. If I put down, it should be 180. And if I put left, it can be 270. And I can put this as 360 as well because it really doesn't matter. So now we have this mapping, what I talked about, which key is being pressed. We still don't know how to take the key presses, but if we know that the direction is going to be up, then we want to rotate the image by this much. If the direction is right, we want to rotate the image by 90. If the direction is down, we want to rotate the image by 180. Right? And I can do this. I can, instead of say here direction to angle, and I can say up. Nothing changes. If I say down, it becomes flipped because the angle now becomes 180. If I say it's left, it goes on the, it turns 270 degree or even minus 90. That is exactly the same. But I'm gonna just keep it 270, it'll make our math easier. So now we know the rotation angle can come from the direction, and we have this little variable here which helps us keep this thing in our head, which direction maps to what angle value. Now comes the interesting part on how to take user input. So previously, when we wanted to take user inputs, we used to have like a text box or a button where the user can click and have that, or text box where user can go and enter something. But here we want to listen the key events pressed on the whole document. Like on this document, I'm not targeting the image, there is nothing to select. And on this whole document, if I start pressing any keys from my keyboard, I want to have that input. So let's just Google how to take document key presses. We want to have that from JavaScript. How do we do that? And let's look at the Mozilla documentation. And it says that you can put an event target and then add an event listener of key down or something like that. There is key down. There are also other event listeners of key up and key press. Let's stick with using key down for a while. And our event target here would be the whole document because we want to start listening on the whole document. Since again, we are going to be listening to the document and putting an event listener there, this will be an effect because it goes away from the JavaScript API and start listening to something on the DOM. So I'm going to put a use effect here. And this use effect will take a function. I only want to execute this function when we begin our component renders initially. And here I can go and start writing document.add event listener. The name of the event, we're going to do key down. We can also do key up, but I think key down is also nice. And from this event, we will get something, right? Because when this event happens, we can capture the event, and I'm going to just log its value, console log event. Now let's go to our main page where we were rendering everything. Oh wow, the image is massive here. Let me go and zoom out on this page. Okay, I think now you can see the image and everything. As soon as I start pressing any key, for example, I press A, I get this key code A. I also get the number, which key is it? It's key number 65. Same for if I go press S, I get this key code S. Key code here is 83. Let's see what happens when I press up. Oh, it is not supposed to be running here. Let me just refresh the page. Now, if I go and press the up key, we get this arrow up, and inside we have the key code as 38. Similarly, if I press the right button, I get the arrow right, and we get the key code 39. So this key code can help us identify which key are we pressing. So I'm gonna just go and log event.keycode so that it just becomes easier for us to see. Event.keycode. And if you look in here, I think you can also find key code being referred. You can find which key is being pressed by doing event.keycode. So let's see how this will work now. We are just logging the key code variable values. So if I press up, oops, I press two keys. If I press up, I get 38. If I press right, I get 39. If I press down, I get 40. And if I press left, I get 37. So it basically starts from left, up, right, down, and we get all the values: 37, 38, 39, 40. I can rather make a variable or another function here, and I can call it key to direction. And this will take a key code. So I'm going to just put the key code here. And here I can start using the JavaScript switch variable. I hope you all have seen what a switch variable does. If I put the switch key code in here, I can say when the key is 37, my direction should return left. Let me put this on another block of line. This looks good. And similarly, I'll just write it down for all the others. 38 was up. $39 was right. And similarly, 40 was down. And we will hit some default value, because if some random other key is pressed, let's say A or C, we do not have any angle corresponding to it. So I'm just gonna return a null from there. Let me just clean this up a little bit. And if I do that, yeah. So now I have this function key code to direction that will take a key code, and we already saw what sort of key codes we were getting. 38, 39, these all key codes are for the different values of the keys I'm pressing. And on basis of that, we can identify which angle we have pressed. Now what we want is basically, on the basis we have the key code. From the key code, we can find the direction, left, up, right, or down. From the direction, we can also find the angle. And I only separated that. From here, you can directly return on case 37, which is left, you can directly return 270. But I just wanted to keep it so that when you read the code, it is understandable to you which direction is mapping to which angle and which key code is mapping to which direction. So let's see, can we find the directions from the key code? Yes, instead of doing a console log of event.keycode, I want to console log key code to direction. And let me just put it in a variable, const direction is equal to key code to direction, and I can start logging this variable now directly, and hopefully it should work for us. So let me just refresh. Now if I press the up, I get up. If I press the right, I get right. If I press down, I'll get down. If I press left, I get left. So basically everything is working. If I press any random key, I'm just gonna get null. But the up, right, down, left, all of them works. Since now we have the direction, we can also find the angle because this value up, right, down, left corresponds to an angle. But remember, this might be giving us a null value. So I'm just gonna say if we have direction, then const angle is equal to, from direction to angle, we can just pass the direction and get the angle back. And I'm gonna start logging the angle in here. Let's see, let's refresh this again. Now what all I have done is from the key code, I tried to map to a direction. From that direction, I tried to map to a value of the angle, and that's what I'm trying to log if I actually get a direction, because keys like A, B, C, D, none of them have a direction for us. Only the right, up, down, left keys have a direction for us in our code. So I'm going to do this, and if I press up, I get 360. If I press left, I get 90. If I press, right, I get 90. If I press down, I get 180. If I press left, I get 270, which is perfect. This is the value that we need to change the angle. And there comes the fun part. Now, how do I change this rotation angle? Currently, it's just set to left by default. Well, whenever we want to start changing a variable inside React, you're going to put it as state rotation angle, comma, set rotation angle. And initially it will be use state. Initially the rotation angle we can say is 0, so the image is straight. Let everything load. The image looks pretty straight. I'm going to use the set rotation angle, and I'm gonna start setting the rotation angle from what we get from the key press. And I can just go and put the state variable before the use effect. And I'm gonna refresh the page. Or actually, let's see it on the bigger page. Now this is our image. If I press up, nothing happens. If I press right, it turns 90 degree. If I press down, it turns 180 degree. If I press left, it goes 270. If I press up, it again restores to 0 or 360. And what is simply happening is from the use effect, we put an event listener on the whole document. We started listening to our key presses. From the key presses, we got to know what our direction would be. If I'm pressing 37, that means I have pressed the left key. If I'm getting the key code 38, that means I'm pressing the up key. If I get the key code 39, I get right, and so on. And once we know what direction our user wanted to do, we can know what angle we want our image to rotate, and each direction has a corresponding angle to it. So it's a one-to-one mapping of angles and directions, and this is a one-to-one mapping of key codes to direction. The only thing is we can be pressing any keys, so for the default I just passed on null. So now from the key code we can get the direction, and if we actually get a direction, because remember we can get a null value because A, B, C, D, E, F, like all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, all of those keys don't have any direction associated for our app. We get the direction. If there is direction, then we find the angle, and from that angle we can set the rotation angle. As soon as this rotation angle changes, this rotation angle was already part of the CSS transform style to rotate the image, and thus the image rotates. And this is how you can use effect to capture events from the whole document rather from an input box or from a button or something. We can start listening to the events on the whole document itself.